Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. We are based in Seattle. My name is Hyung Lim, and our solution is called eRequester. We've been partnering with BAS Solutions as one of the e-procurement spend management solution that works with Sage 300 and other ERP systems in real time. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'll be presenting a few slides first, and then I'll actually show you our product at a very high level. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll open it up and you can ask any questions you might have. So again, my name is Hyung Lim from eRequester. eRequester is a leading spend management solution that provides visibility, efficiencies, and controls over all your purchases and spending. eRequester has an automated approval workflow engine where you can configure whatever workflow or approval routing based on different rules and criteria like departments, dollar values, type of request, capital expenditure. So you can set up different workflows and approval routings. And eRequester has been recognized uh, as one of the best and easiest to use web based application for your purchasing and procurement processes. Um, And as I mentioned, uh, one of the research firms, the Gardner Group, recognizes eRequester as one of the best in these categories. So eRequester has been top rated for time to value, ease of use, customer care, and technology. eRequester is used by more than 800 clients worldwide with lots of users on those systems. And we've been in business about 20 years. So the first version of eRequester was launched in 1999. So we've been in business about 20 years, and we've been improving this solution over those years. Uh, and eRequester will help you save time, money, and improve accountability. Uh, so eRequester will help you strike the balance between automation efficiencies and the control. So these are some of daily purchasing challenges that our customers face, and that's why they came to us. Um, and I'm sure you will recognize some of these challenges in your daily work. For example, if you have paper-based and manual requisition process, uh, very manual approval, routing, and approvals, lack of budget insights when you are requesting to buy something or trying to purchase or spend money. Uh, if you are creating manual purchase orders, even if you are using an ERP like Sage 300 PO module, maybe you are currently entering all the data manually into Sage 300 PO and creating purchase orders out of Sage 300. But we can help you automate that and streamline so that you don't have to enter manually when you want to send out the purchase orders. And as you can see, some other challenges are frustrated staff, missing data, lost approvals. I'm sure you can recognize some of these challenges in your work. So by using eRequester, the benefits of the system is that it will help you reduce or eliminate raw or maverick spending by having pre-approvals to all your purchases. And it will help you reduce processing errors and fraud by having all the record in the system. And eRequester keeps a very detailed audit trail of what happened to each transaction. And it will help you increase compliance, consolidate your spending to preferred vendors. You can do invoice matching to your POs and receipts, and it will help you reduce labor by making it more efficient and streamlined to do your requisitions, purchase orders, and invoice processing. So today I'm going to show you our core platform, which is our requisitions to PO. So eRequest core platform comes with the requisitions, approvals, and purchase orders. And you can approve your requisition through web or mobile or email. You can do change orders if something changes on your purchase orders. It will be sending out automatic email notifications to all appropriate people involved in the transaction. It will provide reports as well as a very strong search capability for business intelligence. On top of that, there are a few very popular optional modules. We call them modules, but these are actually additional features in eRequester. So today I'll show you briefly what the receiving module will do. For example, it will help you do two-way or three-way matching of invoices with POs. I'll show you an example of invoice approvals for AP workflow and how the budget control works. But eRequester is a full suite of e-procurement solutions, so it has a lot of other functionality. What you see here are some of the sample modules or features, but it has a lot more functionality. If you are interested at the end of this presentation, maybe you can ask questions, or we would be happy to schedule a private webinar, or you can come to our website and sign up for our weekly webinar to go into more details about these features. These are sample customers in that are using eRequester. eRequester is a truly a cross-industry solution where we have customers in all industries. So enterprise, large and small, government, non-profits, education. So we pretty much have customers in all industries and all over the world. But about 80% of our customers are based in North America. So that's a quick run through of my PowerPoint. Now I actually want to show you at high level what eRequester looks like. So I'm going to log in as myself and using my web browser. So all users will access eRequester through their web browsers, and each user will have their own username and password. So I'm typing in my username and password. As you can see, this is my company, eRequester, but eRequester supports multiple companies. And each company can be connected to different database. So you can be connected to Sage 300, for example, or if you have multiple ERP systems, you can set up those companies pointing to different ERPs, or you can use eRequester as a standalone company. But if you have a single company, you don't need to worry about it. It will default to your company. And when you click login, you'll be taken to My Request tab. And depending on what kind of modules you have turned on in your company, you might be seeing different tabs available across the top. Also, it depends on what kind of rights you have in the system. And if you are an approver, you will have this pending approvals tab. But if you are not an approver, you will not see that. So, but everyone will have this My Request tab where these are all my current transactions, currently in progress. And as you can see, I'm logged in as myself, Hyung. And in my dashboard, these are all my transactions. And when I create a new transaction or new requisition, the system will automatically assign a new request number, and it will start out in the status of incomplete until you complete the request and submit it. Then the status will change to waiting, and the system will automatically send an email notification to the first approver. And you can have multiple approvers depending on what your workflow is. And as you can see, some of these transactions are waiting for my manager, John, and this one is waiting on the second level approver, Jane Director. But you can set up as many levels of approvers and different routing rules in the system. And when you create a new request, you can name your request whatever you want for friendly reference. So you can give it a friendly name. And if eRequester is integrated with your Sage 300 or your ERP system, we'll be actually reading those vendors right out of your ERP. So you don't have to maintain a separate list of vendors in eRequester. So we'll be reading these vendors directly out of your ERP system. As I mentioned, you can set up different types of requests with different workflows. So for example, the standard request might just go through your departmental approvals based on different dollar values, or the CapEx request might always have to go through your finance department for approval, for example. And maybe computer related request has to go to your IT department for review and approval. So you can set up different requests based on different rules and workflow. I've already explained about the status, the approvers, some dates of each transaction, and the total amount of each transaction. Now I'm going to walk through a couple of examples, very simple examples. The first one, I'm going to use a template. So you can set up as many templates as you want in this system based on the items that you order frequently or you request frequently. And you can set up your personal templates or departmental or global templates. So I'm going to pick my personal template here. And when I take a look at that, you will see that this office supplies template has all these items predefined with the cost, maybe tax, and the vendor who you want to buy from, the type of request for the workflow, and your department. So if you need to request some of these items, all you have to do is go down here, click copy, and then the system will automatically turn that template into a new request. So this is a new standard request, 5698. A new number has been assigned. And if I need to order some packs of paper because we ran out of this copy and print papers, and we ran out of some folders, and let's say binders. These are the only things that I need at this time. And when I click save and continue, you will see that the system automatically drops those items with 0 quantities. And you see it only has these 3 items that I need at this time. And another nice thing about eRequester is that you can attach any kind of backup or supporting document for these items at the header level or at the line item level. So I'm going to attach a document explaining what kind of paper or print paper I'm requesting. So I can go to my attachments folder, and then maybe I can attach a product image or some kind of spec for this item. And when I upload it, when I click done, you will see that the screen refreshes and I'm actually attaching a product image of what kind of paper I'm requesting. But you can attach multiple documents for all the items or each item. And another feature that I want to show you here is that, as you can see, the product description turned red and the GL account number turned red. And there's a red exclamation point. So if I click this GL account number, what the system is doing is actually pulling up the GL budget information from your ERP. So if you have GL budget set up in your ERP, it'll be pulling up the budgets and then comparing the actual, the committed, the pending amount, and compares that total to the budget and give you the variance by period. So since I don't have any budget set up for this GL account, obviously, whenever I request something against the GL, it's going to put me over budget and is giving me a warning. So um, this is a nice feature and one of the most popular features that our customers request. So although I see that this item is going to put this GL over budget, I'm going to take my chance and still continue with this request. So when I'm ready, I can click save and continue. And then the system will automatically determine who the approvers are based on the rules you have set up in the system. So for this request type, it's just going through my departmental approvals. And $535 falls beyond John's approval level. So it has to go to the second level approver, Jane. And then my company has a centralized purchasing department. So once my requisition goes through the approvals and gets fully approved, the purchasing coordinator will get an email notification and they can create the PO and place the order. So now I'm going to actually submit this request. So once I submit my request, the first approver, John, will get an email notification. And I'll show you that email when it arrives because it's going through the email server and it takes a few seconds to get here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as the first approver, John. So I've logged out as myself and I'm logging in as John, the first approver. When you log in as an approver, you see you are taken directly to your pending approvals tab. And in the email, there will be a hyperlink where you can click that hyperlink. Okay, so the email just arrived in John's inbox. So this is the email that John received. This is a $535 request from Hyung for these items, and it requires John's approval. And if John does not want to log into the system, he has the option to approve or reject this request from the email. So he can simply click approve, reject, or request more info from the email instead of logging into the system. But if he wants to log in for some reason, as I mentioned, he can click this hyperlink in the email. And when he does, he'll be taken directly to that transaction, the transaction number 5698 for these three items. And he can expand each item and see what GL account is being charged to. If there are attachments, he can take a look at them. But if you give the approvers the right to change this GL account, there will be an edit button here and they can change this GL so that they can pick one that does not go over budget. But of course, they can click this and see what kind of budget it has, just like I showed you before. And then when an approver logs in, they have a couple of more options than from the email. For example, this edit button, if you give your approvers the right to change the transaction themselves, instead of sending this back to the requester Hyung and requiring change or requesting more info, they can simply click edit and change whatever is on this request. So that's an option when you log in as an approver. But if John wants to approve this, although this is over budget, he can put whatever comment in this comment field and then approve. And then I'll show you later that the system even captures those comments for communication purpose. So John just approved this request. And then in the workflow, Jane was the second and final approver. So I'm logging in as Jane, but in the meantime, another email will be going out to Jane, just like the one I showed you before. So when Jane gets that email and logs in, and when she's taken directly to the transaction that was in the email, 5698, and just like John, she can review all the information, including the attachments. But when she goes down to the request history, she will see that this request was created and submitted by Hyung approved by his manager, John. And we even captured his comment in the system. John said, this is fine, although it's over budget. So Jane might just say, okay, by me, because John approved it for his department. So she can put a comment there. And when she approves, since she's the final approver, the purchasing coordinator, Bill, will get an email notification. So when Bill gets an email notification, he can log in as the purchaser. And when they do, they'll be taken directly to the Create PO tab, since this is a purchaser. And only purchasers have this tab called Create PO. And this one at the bottom is the one that was just approved by both John and Jane. So as the purchaser, I want to give it a final review to make sure everything is correct. And when I go down to the request history, I see that both the manager, John, and director Jane approved with their comments. And the status is approved. And in the meantime, all these emails are going out to appropriate people. You can see down here. So when Bill is ready to create the PO, he can simply click this Create PO button, and the system will automatically create the next PO number, 1034. And this number will be coming from your ERP purchase order module if you have the purchase orders in your ERP generating PO numbers from the approved request 5698. And when I click this purchase order number, this is the purchase order form that has been generated in eRequester. So this is PO 1034 from this company to this vendor for these 3 items. And you can set up your terms and conditions and other information for this. And then by clicking email from the screen, you can email out this purchase order to the vendor. And the system looks at the vendor's contact list, and if there's an email address, it will automatically populate the vendor's email address. But I don't want to send it to the vendor, so I'm just going to change it to my email address. And you can send this as an HTML or PDF. You can attach whatever terms and conditions. You can even attach those documents in the transaction. And when you click send, you will see that the vendor, in this case, myself, will receive a purchase order email in the inbox. And I'll show you when that arrives. So that pretty much completes a simple requisition to purchase order workflow. I've just completed that. Now, quickly, I want to show you what happens afterwards. If you want to do the receiving in eRequester, then you can simply log in as a receiver. In this case, is myself again. And let me show you that purchase order email example. So this is the purchase order 1034 from this company. The document has been attached, and this is the purchase order for these 3 items. So that's an example of the purchase order email that has been sent. But now going back, I'm going to log in as a receiver now. When you log in as a receiver, you'll be taken to your receiving tab. Only the receivers have this receiving tab. And the order that has just been placed for those 3 items, that's the one that's at top of this list. And when the product comes in, when the items come in, you can simply click receive button here and then receive them against the purchase order. So if all the items come in, you can simply click this box and the system will automatically update all the items. And you can also partially receive them if you need to. And then when you click save the receipt, the system generates a transaction on the receipt history. So Hyung just received all the items against this purchase order. And as you can see, there's none remaining to receive. And you can even attach a copy of a packing slip. So I'm going to pick my packing slip and attach here. And when you upload it, you see a PDF document has been attached. And the system shows a paperclip icon here tell me that there's an attachment. And the final step in receiving is that when the invoice comes in, usually the AP or the accounting department receives the invoice. And when I log in as an AP user, I can take a look at the invoice and then search for the PO number that is on the invoice. And when I search, that PO will come up, the PO 1034, and you can actually match the invoice against the receipt and the purchase order to complete the three-way match. So all I have to do as the AP user is just enter the invoice number and date. And all the items from the PO automatically appear. And if everything matches with the packing slip and the PO, you can simply match it to the receipt 1873, and you see the quantities and the amount gets updated automatically. And when you click Save Invoice, it will complete the three-way match between this invoice against the receipt and the PO. And as the final step, you can simply choose a copy of the invoice from your folder and attach it to this transaction. That pretty much completes this step. And when you are ready, and if it's integrated with your ERP system, there'll be a button that says Post to Accounting, and you can simply click that button, and the unposted voucher, all this invoice information will be transferred over to your ERP AP module. So that pretty much completes a three-way match all the way from requisitions to PO and three-way match with your invoice and completes the transaction. That's in a nutshell what eRequester will help you to automate and streamline your requisitions to purchase orders and invoice approval and matching before you send that information over to your ERP system. So that's a very high level overview of eRequester. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to open up the floor for any question you might have about today's presentation.
Thank you so much for that. We did have two questions. The first question was about implementation. How long does it take to implement this process?
Okay, so that's a very good question. That's a question we get every time when we do a presentation, pretty much. So it really depends on the customers. From our perspective, it can take as short as possible. So what I mean by that is a lot of the information gathering, for example, the workflows, your users, the department, all the rules, the client has to gather all of that in order to set it up in the system. So at the beginning of the process, we start with a kickoff call, and we go through that process, what information is needed to set up your company and implement. So in that first call, we provide all the documents that you need for gathering the information. And after that, it really depends on how fast our clients gather the information and scheduling those calls to implement the system with our clients. So, but typically, it takes about a month, about 4 weeks from kickoff to go live, just to give you an idea.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I hope that answered your question for the attendees. The other question we have is about users. Is there a limit to how many users you can have? Can they scale if their company grows?
Okay, that's a very good, another great question. There are two factors there. One is, no, there's no limitation to users. You can have unlimited users. So this system is very scalable. We have customers that are just using 10 users versus thousands of users. So it's a very scalable system, and you can start small and keep adding more users. But the thing is, this solution is the cost is based on number of users. So of course, if you add more users, it will cost more. But in terms of the the system, there's no limitation to number of users.
Well,
Did,
it seems to be all the questions that we have. So thank you so much for that.
okay.
If anybody else has any questions, you can feel free to send an email and we'd be happy to pass them along to get those answers for you. But otherwise, we're ready to wrap up this webinar.
Great. Thank you so much. Here's my, of course, you can contact me through BAS. We work with BAS very closely. So if you know an account manager or somebody at BAS, please contact them and then they will, forward your questions, or we can set up another, private webinar, for example. But here's my contact information if you want. And thank you everyone for your time today. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation.